Hi, g'day there, and welcome to the rewrap for Tuesday. All the best bits from the Mike Hosking Breakfast on News Talk ZB and a Cilia package. I am Glenn ZB, and this morning Mike's back after a week off, and so he's got to talk about all the things that he couldn't talk about because he wasn't here last week, which includes things like Nanaia Mahuta's Five Eyes speech and the Himatau situation. We also need to talk about something in Tokyo that has been cancelled, which is a bad sign. And then, can you do salmon farming on land, not in the ocean? But before any of that, the vaccine rates, our vaccination rates, how are we stacking up against the rest of the world? I bet we're going awesome.
Average around the world per 100 people vaccinated so far. And Des Gorman's spot on. I hope New Zealand wakes up to this sooner or later. But around the world at the moment, on average, per 100 people, it's 13. 13 people per 100. In a global sense, have been vaccinated. The leaders are Seychelles. Actually, we often talk about the Israeli success or the UAE success. It's actually the Seychelles. They've got 125 people per 100 vaccinated. Israel's at 117. The UAE is at 106. The other major countries we talk of success, the UK is currently at 70. The United States at 69. Singapore, good local example for us, 39 per 100. Then we have to start going down the list, and we go down, we turn the page, we come to, where's the country? Oh, Australia, 7.7. They're 79th in the world. We come down to Ecuador, no. Oh, here we are. We are 99th. 99th in the world. We were, last time I checked, 98. So we've gone backwards. We're currently doing 3.8 people per 100. And we're an esteemed company. We're right beside Ecuador, Equatorial Guinea, Belarus, Moldova, Tunisia, Rwanda, Ghana, Eswatini, Senegal, Northern Macedonia, Togo, Laos, and Myanmar.
Could you just make up a country in the middle of that?
I didn't. I hadn't heard of it either, but we're in there.
I'd just like to apologise to all of you listening in Eswatini there. I mean, obviously you're a real country. We wouldn't just make up a country in the middle of all that, would we? No, of course not. Definitely real. And thank you for listening. I don't know how closely Mike was listening to the show last week. Obviously, we covered this pretty extensively.
Didn't Nanaia Mahuta's speech last week, for goodness sake, reek of a person several fathoms out of her depth, We're part of the Five Eyes, but we're now dictating what sort of thing Five Eyes should do, and humanitarian issues apparently don't appear to be one of them. What? Said Australia, who were, to quote one of the many headlines, completely blindsided. Top tip. In the world of high-powered foreign relations, don't freak your mates out. Give your mates a heads up. Don't always have to be in lockstep. Don't always have to say the weird stuff they're not expecting, though. Give them a heads up. The Brits took even greater exception and dragged the woke Prime Minister into it by quite correctly pointing out you can't, on one hand, opine about the Uyghurs and on the other, as they put it, suck up to China. It was sadly another good example of how this government operates. Say stuff that isn't thought through, then once you've said it and it's all raining down on you, pretend it's something different to what you actually said. Not dissimilar to the Himatau deal. Turns out to be illegal. Their own Auditor General pinged them, but in the spin was it's only a technicality. Bollocks. If talking your way out of trouble was policy, we'd be inundated. But back to the real world in which we've increasingly operate in. China. Today is not the China of old. Of course, China has a confidence and boldness to them that has a lot of people quite rightly exercised. The world is a fractured place, and that's only going to get worse, and we're stuck in the middle. We need China more than China needs us. We're in a $20 billion relationship with China. China owns us, basically. Meantime, Australia, who take a different worldview, asked for a report into the origins of COVID. They've ripped up Daniel Andrews' Belt and Road policy and have generally taken the fight to the Chinese, who have responded thus far by costing Australia about $20 billion worth of business. The reality of all of this is kind of simple. The world is made up of alliances, and the one we're in has countries like Australia, the States, the UK and Europe in it. And they're increasingly wary of the Chinese, also of places like Russia, but Russia matters less. Our issue is how stuck we are, and walking this particularly tricky tightrope are a bunch of amateurs who don't hold a position of any clarity on most, and most likely haven't even thought much about it. The Mahuta speech and its astonishing stance and resulting reaction tells you that.
I mean, I'm not saying he's not allowed to talk about last week's news. I mean, you're talking to a guy who does a podcast every day featuring yesterday's news. News Talk ZB. I don't know if you've not listened to it, give it a go. It's like this, but it's got more of the rest of the station in it. Anyway, yeah, and we've all been wanting to know what he thinks about these things. It's just, I always find it a little bit amusing sitting there going, I bet Mike's going to talk about this, and this, because that all happened last week. And sure enough...
You know what the talent I admire among many a politician, but particularly this current lot, is the ability to spout complete crap and do it with a straight face. It doesn't get a lot clearer than an Auditor-General telling you your Ihumātao deal is illegal. Something's either legal or it isn't. Turns out Ihumātao wasn't, but that didn't stop the government pretending illegality wasn't really a big deal. It was a technicality. Of course it was. Easily solved. Sort of like taking something from a shop without paying isn't theft. It's a technicality. When you're caught, you go back, you put the item back, you apologise, you have to pay for it, say you'll never do it again. See, easy. Technicality. They figured that the money taken from housing was sort of going to housing anyway. So if a house got built, did it really matter where it was? The fact they had no idea whether any houses would be built shouldn't diminish from the simple misunderstanding between a technicality and illegality. After all, both words end in a Y. You knew this stunk, of course, right from the start, didn't you? You knew something was up from the very day the poor old Prime Minister couldn't help herself, waded in and told Fletchers to stop building until something got sorted. That something, of course, took an age, as it was always going to, because the Ardern wade-in was in fact an overreach, and once she had spouted off, everyone else had to scramble to try and work out what the hell to do without turning it into an almighty treaty free-for-all. That's why they slipped it out just before Christmas. We'd all gone on holiday, and we'd forget about it by February, except, of course, until it turned out to be a stitch-up, and the Auditor-General ran the ruler over it. Now, the weird thing for me was they knew it was a mess from day one, and yet knowing that, clearly not once did anyone go get some legal advice. No one even clearly thought about asking the question. Why not? You're either startlingly arrogant, or thick, or quite possibly in this case both, that you can stitch up something as shonky as this, not ask a single legal mind a single question, slip it out at Christmas, and then assume nothing's going to come back to bite you. Add it to the list of stuff they've cocked up, and we've paid for. I mean, I tell you what, if National and ACT are taking notes on this, they're going to have an astonishing list set to go by 2023.
I don't know why I'm criticising Mike for talking about these issues. I mean, last week when I was talking about Ihumātao and I said that I still can't spell it, much to my shame. And now, even more shamefully, I still can't spell it, even after saying that last week. You would have thought I would... No, still can't do it. I can spell Tokyo, though.
Tokyo Motor Show cancelled. First time in 67 years, which makes it the first time ever. The reason I say that is, how is it possible they're going to run the Olympics? I hate to be right, but I've called it from day one. There is no way the Olympics can be held. It simply can't. I mean, Japan is in no condition or shape to hold the Olympic Games, no matter how badly they want it. I mean, the Tokyo Motor Show is one of the biggest shows in the world. If they can't hold that and that's off, you can't possibly tell me an even bigger event can suddenly or automatically, magically go ahead. It's just not possible.
I can't understand why there aren't more stories about why the Tokyo Olympics won't happen. Because it won't. I mean, where are they going to get the athletes from? How many countries out there can actually provide vaccinated, COVID-free athletes? I mean, seriously. Anyway, the people there might end up feeling like a fish out of water. I'm desperately trying to make that work for this next story. It doesn't quite work, but I really wanted it to.
All the ins and the outs. It's The Biz on the Mike Hosking Breakfast on News Talk ZB.
Got a new idea for fish. Salmon farms on land. So we got this Norwegian company, Atlantic Sapphire. They're currently building and testing indoor tanks for Atlantic salmon, about an hour southwest of Miami. They've called it the Blue House. The first phase was opened last year. They're looking to be the world's largest land-based fish farm. Wait till I give you the numbers. So the advantages, they argue, over sea-based farms are a lower disease rate and lower mortality rates. The fish don't need to be treated with antibiotics or pesticides. Initially, production is going to be 9,500 metric tonnes per year. They want to increase that to 222,000 tonnes by 2031. That would be enough to provide more than 40% of the current US salmon consumption, which is a billion. Basically, they would be supplying 1 billion meals. 1 billion of them. Animal rights activists, of course, not overly impressed because fish generally belong in the open ocean, but Atlantic, they say the welfare indicators like swim speed and all that constantly being monitored.
That's a lot of pressure if you're a salmon. They're measuring your swim speed to because apparently that will show whether you're healthy or not. Does that mean that you have to keep swimming fast? Or is it a slow, leisurely, relaxed? Which is it? Because I feel like if I'm healthy, I'm just cruising around the place. It's when I'm in a hurry, I'm stressed out. Feel sorry for the salmon now. Go back and watch that Seaspiracy thing after all. I'm Glenn ZB. Or is it Landspiracy now that they're on land? I'm Glenn ZB. Licensed to tell dad jokes, 2 licenses. That was the rewrap for Tuesday. Feels like a Monday. I'll be back with a Wednesday, which will probably, to be fair, will just seem like a Wednesday tomorrow. That's when Wednesday is, in case you were confused.
How much should I be spending? Where do I get started investing? Can money make me happy? To find out, join me, Frances Cook, on Cooking the Books, your personal finance podcast. Listen and follow now on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.
Make HR easy with MyHR, the cost-effective outsourced solution for New Zealand employers. On-call expert advice combined with powerful time-saving software. Fixed monthly fee, no lock-in contract. Go to myhr.works for more.